Madison's breath caught in her throat as she spotted him across the crowded room. Ethan Davis, her ex-boyfriend of 2 years, was making his way toward her with that familiar predatory smile that once made her heart race, but now only filled her with dread. She hadn't expected him to be at this corporate mixer, but of course, fate would have such cruel plans for her tonight. "I need to get out of here," she whispered to herself, clutching her champagne flute tighter as she scanned the room for an escape route. The sea of unfamiliar faces offered no comfort as she backed up slowly, only to feel the solid wall behind her. Perfect. Cornered like prey. Amelia Turner had spent the last 6 months rebuilding her life after ending things with Ethan. She had finally landed her dream job at Horizon Marketing, moved into a cozy apartment in the city, and was beginning to feel like herself again. All that progress seemed to evaporate as Ethan approached, his cologne reaching her before he did. "Amelia," he said, his voice carrying that false warmth she'd grown to recognize during their final months together. "What a surprise. You look different." The way his eyes traveled over her navy cocktail dress made her skin crawl. "Ethan, I didn't know you'd be here. Your company just acquired Burke Media, right? I've been consulting for them." His smile widened. "Looks like we'll be seeing more of each other." Amelia's stomach dropped. This networking event was supposed to celebrate her team's successful acquisition pitch. Now, it felt like a trap. "I'm actually just leaving," she lied, desperately looking around for someone, anyone, she recognized from her office. Without catching up first, after how things ended. Ethan leaned closer, resting his palm against the wall next to her head. "You still owe me an explanation, Leah." The use of her old nickname sent a chill down her spine. "I don't owe you anything, Ethan. We've been over this. 6 years together, and you walk out with a note? That's cold, even for you." His voice had dropped to that dangerously quiet tone she remembered all too well. "I think we should discuss it, privately." Amelia tried to step sideways, but Ethan shifted, effectively blocking her path. "There's nothing to discuss. Please move." "Not until you hear me out." His fingers wrapped around her wrist, not painfully tight but firm enough to make his intentions clear. 5 minutes, Leah, that's all I'm asking." Before she could respond, a deep voice cut through their conversation. "I believe the lady asked you to move." Both Amelia and Ethan turned to see a tall, imposing figure standing just behind them. The man was dressed in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that highlighted broad shoulders. His dark hair was neatly styled, and his expression was one of calm authority. "This is a private conversation," Ethan said, straightening up but not releasing Amelia's wrist. "Mind your own business." The stranger's steel blue eyes narrowed slightly. "When you corner a woman against her will at my event, it becomes my business." "His event?" Amelia looked at him more closely. She didn't recognize him, but there was something commanding about his presence that made even Ethan hesitate. "Your event?" Ethan scoffed, though his grip loosened slightly. "And who exactly are you?" "Maxwell Quinn," the man replied simply. The name hung in the air for a moment before recognition dawned on Ethan's face. Everyone in the business world knew Maxwell Quinn, the reclusive tech genius turned venture capitalist whose investments turned to gold. His company, Quinn Innovations, was worth billions, and he rarely made public appearances. Yet, here he was, stepping into a petty confrontation at a corporate mixer. "Mr. Quinn," Ethan stammered, immediately releasing Amelia's wrist. "I didn't realize—" "Clearly," Maxwell cut him off, his voice level but carrying an unmistakable edge. "Now, I'll ask once more politely. Please step away from Ms. Turner," Amelia supplied, finding her voice. "Amelia Turner. Ms. Turner," Maxwell finished, his gaze never leaving Ethan. Ethan looked between them, his expression morphing from shock to calculation. "We were just catching up. Old friends, you know how it is." "I do know how it is," Maxwell replied. "And this doesn't look friendly. Security is just over there if you need assistance finding the exit." The threat was clear. Ethan's jaw clenched, but he took a step back, straightening his tie. "No need for that. I was just leaving anyway." He turned to Amelia with a tight smile. "We'll continue this another time, Leah." "No, you won't," Maxwell stated firmly. Ms. Turner has made it clear she's not interested in continuing any conversation with you. For a moment, Amelia thought Ethan might argue further, but something in Maxwell's unwavering stare made him think better of it. With a final glare at Amelia, he turned and disappeared into the crowd. Amelia let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Maxwell, please," he interrupted, his expression softening as he turned to her. "Are you all right?" Up close, she could see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes, the slight shadow of stubble along his jaw. He was older than she'd initially thought, perhaps in his mid-30s, with fine lines at the corners of his eyes that suggested he smiled often, though he wasn't smiling now. "I'm fine," she said automatically, then corrected herself. "Actually, no, that was uncomfortable." "Ex-boyfriend?" Maxwell asked, nodding toward where Ethan had disappeared. "Yes, one who apparently doesn't understand the concept of boundaries. Those types rarely do." He offered her a fresh glass of champagne from a passing waiter. "Would you like to step out onto the terrace? It's quieter there, and you look like you could use some air." Amelia hesitated. On one hand, she'd just escaped one uncomfortable situation with a man she didn't know well. On the other, Maxwell Quinn had just rescued her, and they were in a public place full of people. Plus, there was something trustworthy about his steady gaze. "That would be nice. Thank you." Maxwell guided her toward the French doors leading to the terrace, not touching her, but staying close enough that his presence felt protective rather than threatening. The cool evening air was a welcome relief from the stuffy ballroom. "Better?" he asked as they reached the balustrade overlooking the city lights. Amelia nodded, taking a sip of champagne. "Much. I'm sorry you had to step in like that." "Not exactly what you planned for your evening, I imagine." "On the contrary," Maxwell said, a small smile finally appearing. "Rescuing beautiful women from persistent exes was precisely how I hoped to spend my Thursday night." The unexpected humor caught her off guard, and she laughed despite herself. "Well, in that case, happy to oblige." His smile widened, revealing a dimple in his right cheek that transformed his serious face into something much more approachable. "You work for Horizon Marketing, correct?" "Yes," Amelia said, surprised. "How did you know?" "I make it my business to know who's attending my events," he replied. "You're part of the team that orchestrated the Burke Media acquisition." Now it was Amelia's turn to be impressed. "You've done your homework, Mr. Quinn Maxwell." "It's a habit," he admitted. "Though I confess I didn't anticipate needing to use that information quite this way." They fell into an easy conversation, moving from business to more general topics. Amelia found herself relaxing in his presence, the earlier encounter with Ethan fading to the background. Maxwell was surprisingly easy to talk to, listening intently when she spoke and offering thoughtful responses. There was none of the arrogance she might have expected from someone of his status. "So, what brings a billionaire tech mogul to play host at a marketing industry mixer?" she asked eventually. "Seems beneath your pay grade." Maxwell leaned against the balustrade, his profile outlined by the city lights. "You'd be surprised what interests me. I'm considering some new investments in the marketing sector. Events like these help me get a feel for the landscape." "And do you often intervene in personal disputes while conducting your research?" "Only when necessary," he replied, his expression turning serious again. "What your ex was doing wasn't just uncomfortable, it was crossing a line. No one should have to deal with that, especially not at a professional event." Amelia studied him, trying to reconcile this thoughtful man with the intimidating billionaire reputation. "Well, thank you again. I should probably get back inside. My colleagues will be wondering where I've disappeared to." "Of course." Maxwell straightened up, but before turning to go, he hesitated. "Amelia, would you consider having dinner with me sometime? I'd like to continue our conversation in a setting that doesn't involve rescuing you from uncomfortable situations." The request caught her off guard. Was Maxwell Quinn asking her on a date? The very idea seemed absurd. Men like him dated supermodels and heiresses, not marketing managers from small-town backgrounds. I'm not sure that's a good idea," she said cautiously. "You don't really know me." "That's precisely why I'm asking," he replied, unfazed by her hesitation. "I'd like to know you better." Amelia bit her lip, considering. There was something genuine about his request that made it hard to dismiss outright. "I'll think about it," she finally said. Maxwell nodded, accepting her non-answer gracefully. Fair enough. He reached into his suit jacket and produced a business card, offering it to her. My personal number is on the back. If you decide you're interested in that dinner, call me. Amelia took the card, the heavy stock paper feeling substantial between her fingers. I should get back to my team. Of course. Maxwell stepped back, giving her space. It was a pleasure meeting you, Amelia Turner, despite the circumstances. Likewise, Maxwell Quinn. As she made her way back to the ballroom, Amelia slipped his card into her clutch, telling herself she would probably never use it. Men like Maxwell Quinn moved in different circles, lived different lives. Whatever interest he had shown tonight was likely just a momentary diversion for him. Yet, she couldn't help glancing back as she reached the doors. Maxwell was still standing on the terrace, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. For just a moment, their eyes met, and something electric passed between them before she turned away, rejoining the crowded party with her heart beating just a little faster than before. Amelia didn't call Maxwell that night, or the next day, or even the day after that. The business card sat in her purse, occasionally catching her eye when she reached for her wallet, a tangible reminder of their brief encounter. You should call him, insisted her roommate and best friend Paige, when Amelia finally confessed about meeting Maxwell Quinn. They were sitting in their small but cozy living room, takeout containers spread across the coffee table. It's not that simple, Amelia replied, twirling lo mein around her fork. He's Maxwell Quinn. Do you know what his net worth is? Paige rolled her eyes. No, but I'm sure you Googled it extensively. 28 billion, Amelia said. With a B, he owns islands, Paige. Plural, islands. And? Does that make him less of a person? Less deserving of a callback from a cute marketing manager? Amelia sighed, putting down her fork. It makes him completely out of my league. Men like that don't seriously date women like me. They might play around for a while, but eventually they marry someone from their world. That's such a cliché, Paige argued. You don't know him well enough to make that judgment. Besides, he rescued you from Ethan the Terrible. That should earn him at least a phone call. Amelia couldn't deny that Maxwell had been incredibly kind that night, stepping in when no one else had noticed her discomfort, and their conversation afterward had been surprisingly easy, lacking the awkwardness she might have expected. I'll think about it, she said, echoing her response to Maxwell himself. The opportunity to reconsider came sooner than expected. The following Monday, Amelia was sitting in a strategy meeting when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Amelia, it's Maxwell Quinn. I hope you don't mind me reaching out directly. I have 2 tickets to the gallery opening at the Whitman Museum this Friday. Their new tech innovation exhibit is supposed to be remarkable. Would you consider accompanying me? No pressure either way. Amelia stared at the message, heart racing. How had he gotten her number? Then she remembered submitting her contact information for the event registration. Of course, someone like Maxwell would have access to that. She waited until the meeting ended before responding, typing and deleting multiple versions before settling on, "Hello, Maxwell. The exhibit sounds interesting, but I'm surprised you'd want company for something like that." His reply came almost immediately. "I find art more enjoyable when experienced with someone whose perspective I value. Our brief conversation suggested you might have unique insights. Plus, I promised you dinner, and the museum cafe is excellent." Amelia smiled despite herself. There was something refreshingly direct about his approach. No games, no pretense, just an honest invitation. "All right," she texted back. "What time should I meet you there? I'd prefer to pick you up if that's comfortable for you. 7 o'clock? Amelia hesitated, then decided to meet him halfway. "I'd rather meet you at the museum entrance at 7:15. Is that acceptable?" "Perfectly. I look forward to seeing you, Amelia." For the rest of the week, Amelia alternated between excitement and anxiety about her upcoming date, if that's what it was, with Maxwell Quinn. By Friday evening, she had changed outfits 4 times before settling on a simple black dress that was elegant without being too formal, paired with a colorful silk scarf that added a touch of personality. "You look amazing," Paige assured her as Amelia grabbed her coat. "Remember, he's just a man. A ridiculously wealthy, powerful man, but still just a man." "So helpful," Amelia replied dryly, but she appreciated the pep talk nonetheless. The Whitman Museum was illuminated against the darkening sky when her taxi pulled up at 7:10. Amelia paid the driver and stepped out, scanning the entrance for Maxwell. To her surprise, he was already waiting, dressed in dark jeans and a navy blazer that made him look more approachable than he had in his formal suit at the mixer. His face brightened when he spotted her, and he walked over with that same confident stride she remembered. "Amelia," he greeted her, his smile genuine. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for the invitation," she replied, suddenly feeling shy. "I've been wanting to see this exhibit." "Then we should head inside. I arranged for a semi-private viewing before the main crowd arrives." "Of course you did," Amelia said before she could stop herself. Maxwell's eyebrows rose slightly. "Is that a problem?" "No," she backtracked, feeling her cheeks warm. "It's just very billionaire of you." To her relief, he laughed, a rich sound that made her relax. "I suppose it is. Would you prefer we wait in the general admission line? I'm happy to do whatever makes you comfortable." His sincerity caught her off guard. "The private viewing is fine," she assured him. "I just don't want you to feel like you need to impress me with grand gestures." "Noted," Maxwell said, offering his arm. "Though I should warn you that I did reserve a table at the cafe afterward. Is that acceptably non-grand?" Amelia took his arm, feeling the solid strength beneath his blazer. "That depends. Is it the best table with champagne already chilling?" "It's by the window with a view of the sculpture garden," he admitted. "As for champagne, I thought I'd ask what you prefer first." "Very considerate," she said, smiling up at him. "I think I can allow that." Inside, the museum was hushed and elegant. The new exhibit a fascinating blend of historical artifacts and cutting-edge technology. Maxwell was knowledgeable but never condescending, often asking for Amelia's thoughts rather than just sharing his own expertise. "What do you think of this installation?" he asked as they stood before a wall of interconnected screens, showing the evolution of communication technology. "It's interesting," Amelia replied, studying the display. "But I think it misses something fundamental about how technology changes human connection. It shows the tools, but not the impact." Maxwell nodded thoughtfully. "I agree. The exhibit focuses on the what, but neglects the why and how of technological change." He glanced at her with new appreciation. "You have a keen eye, Amelia. Marketing is all about understanding how tools and messages affect human behavior," she explained. "It's not so different from what you do in tech development, just from a different angle." "I've never thought of it that way," Maxwell admitted, "though it makes perfect sense." He guided her toward the next display, his hand lightly touching the small of her back. "Tell me more about your work at Horizon. What drew you to marketing?" As they moved through the exhibit, Amelia found herself opening up about her career path, her ambitions, and even some of her frustrations with the industry. Maxwell listened with genuine interest, asking insightful questions that showed he was truly engaged. By the time they reached the museum cafe, Amelia had almost forgotten about the vast differences in their social standing. The conversation flowed easily over dinner, ranging from business philosophy to favorite books to amusing travel mishaps. "So, there I was," Maxwell was saying, his eyes crinkling with laughter, stranded in a tiny Norwegian village with no cell service, wearing a suit completely inappropriate for the blizzard, trying to explain to an elderly shopkeeper who spoke no English that I needed snow boots. Amelia laughed, trying to picture the polished man before her in such a predicament. "How did you manage?" "A lot of charades and drawing pictures," he admitted. "I ended up with boots 3 sizes too large and the ugliest wool hat you've ever seen. But I survived the night. And the meeting the next day was successful enough that no one commented on my fashion choices." "I find it hard to believe you ever look anything less than perfectly put together," Amelia said, gesturing to his current impeccable appearance. "I have photographic evidence, but I'm not sharing it until at least our 5th date," he replied, then paused. "That is, if you'd be interested in a second one." The question was asked casually, but Amelia could see the genuine uncertainty in his eyes. It was strangely reassuring to know that even Maxwell Quinn could feel unsure. "I would," she said honestly. "I've enjoyed tonight more than I expected to." "That sounds like a backhanded compliment," Maxwell observed, though his tone was light. "Sorry," Amelia grimaced. "I just mean, I was nervous about this. You're Maxwell Quinn, and I'm..." A fascinating, intelligent woman whose company I've thoroughly enjoyed, he interrupted. The rest is just context, not substance. Amelia studied him, searching for any sign of insincerity, but found none. You make it sound so simple. It can be, he suggested, if we let it. When the evening ended, Maxwell insisted on calling his driver to take Amelia home, despite her protests that a taxi would be fine. Humor me, he said as they stood outside the museum. It would make me feel better knowing you got home safely. Fine, she relented, but just this once. A sleek black car pulled up moments later, and Maxwell opened the door for her. Before she got in, he reached for her hand, his touch warm against her skin in the cool night air. Thank you for coming tonight, Amelia. I'd like to see you again soon, if that's all right. I'd like that too, she admitted, surprising herself with how much she meant it. Good. His smile was soft in the dim light. I'll call you tomorrow. Amelia nodded, then impulsively stood on tiptoe to kiss his cheek. Good night, Maxwell. She caught a glimpse of his startled but pleased expression before sliding into the car. As the driver pulled away, she resisted the urge to look back, but she couldn't stop the smile that spread across her face. Whatever she had expected from this evening, the reality had been far more enjoyable. And if a tiny voice in the back of her mind warned that getting involved with someone like Maxwell Quinn could only lead to heartbreak, she chose, just for tonight, to ignore it. True to his word, Maxwell called the next day. Not to arrange another date immediately, but simply to continue their conversation from the night before. It was the first of many calls and texts that quickly became a regular part of Amelia's day. Over the next few weeks, they saw each other whenever Maxwell's schedule allowed. He took her to small, out-of-the-way restaurants where they could talk without interruption, a jazz club where they danced close in the dim light, and once, memorably, to a cooking class where they both failed spectacularly at making soufflés and ended up ordering pizza afterward. What surprised Amelia most was how normal it felt to be with him, despite the occasional reminders of his status, the discreet security personnel who sometimes shadowed them, the way restaurant owners fawned over him, the luxurious car that appeared whenever they needed transportation. Does it ever bother you? She asked one evening as they walked through a park after dinner, her hand comfortably tucked in his. All the attention, I mean. Maxwell considered the question seriously, as he did most things. Sometimes, he admitted, especially when it creates barriers between me and experiences I'd like to have, or people I'd like to know. He squeezed her hand gently. But I've learned to navigate it, and the benefits of my position allow me to do things I'm passionate about. Like what? Amelia asked, genuinely curious about what drove him. Creating opportunities for innovation, supporting causes I believe in. He paused by a small pond, watching the moonlight ripple across the water. My foundation funds educational initiatives for underprivileged kids. We're developing technology that could make clean water more accessible in developing regions, things that matter. Amelia studied his profile, seeing the intensity that came into his expression when he spoke about his work. You don't talk about that side of your business much. Most people aren't actually interested, Maxwell said with a slight shrug. They want to hear about the glamorous parts, the wealth, the acquisitions, the power, not the work that gives it all meaning. I'm interested, Amelia said softly. Maxwell turned to look at her, his expression softening. I know you are. That's one of the things He hesitated, then simply said, That's one of the things I appreciate about you. There was weight to his unfinished thought that hung in the air between them. They had been seeing each other for nearly a month now, but neither had put a label on what was developing between them. Amelia was afraid to push, to ask for definitions that might shatter the delicate balance they had found. Tell me about your foundation, she said instead. What inspired you to start it? Maxwell seemed grateful for the redirect. As they continued their walk, he opened up about his childhood, revealing bits of his past she hadn't known before. My father was brilliant but distant, he explained, an engineer who saw the world as a series of problems to be solved. My mother was the heart of our family, always finding ways to help others despite our limited means. You didn't grow up wealthy? Amelia asked, surprised. Maxwell shook his head. Far from it. My father's inventions never quite reached their potential during his lifetime. We lived comfortably enough, But there were lean years, especially after he died when I was 15. I'm sorry, Amelia said, squeezing his hand. It was a long time ago, Maxwell replied, though she could hear the lingering sadness. My mother worked 2 jobs to put me through college. I started my first company in my dorm room, determined to bring one of my father's designs to market. When it succeeded beyond all expectations, I promised myself I'd use that success to help others who just needed a chance. Amelia felt a new understanding of the man beside her taking shape. That explains a lot about you. Does it? He looked at her curiously. You don't act like someone born to wealth. You notice people others might overlook. The waiter at Giovanni's, the doorman at the theater, you remember their names? Ask about their families. Maxwell looked almost embarrassed by her observation. That's just basic courtesy. Not for many people in your position, Amelia countered. It's one of the things I like most about you. They had stopped walking again, standing face to face under the soft glow of a park lamp. Maxwell reached up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch lingering against her cheek. What else do you like about me? He asked, his voice low. Amelia felt her heart quicken. Your mind, your kindness, the way you listen, really listen when I talk. She took a breath, gathering courage. The way you make me feel both safe and exhilarated at the same time. Maxwell's eyes darkened, and he stepped closer. May I kiss you, Amelia? They had exchanged only brief tentative kisses before now, both seemingly cautious about moving too quickly. But something had shifted tonight, some barrier falling away between them. Yes, she whispered. His lips met hers gently at first, then with growing intensity as she responded, her hands moving to his shoulders. Maxwell's arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer until she could feel the solid warmth of his body against hers. The kiss deepened, awakening something in Amelia that had been dormant for too long. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Maxwell rested his forehead against hers. I've been wanting to do that properly since our first date, he admitted. Why did you wait? Amelia asked, her fingers playing with the hair at the nape of his neck. I didn't want to rush you, he said simply. I know my world can be overwhelming. I wanted to be sure you were comfortable with me, not just the idea of me. His consideration touched her deeply. I'm very comfortable with you, Maxwell, more than I ever expected to be. He smiled, pressing another soft kiss to her lips. Good, because I find myself thinking about you constantly. When I'm in meetings, when I'm traveling, when I should be focusing on work, all I can think about is when I'll see you next. Amelia's heart soared at his words. I feel the same way, she confessed. It's becoming a problem, actually. My colleagues have noticed I check my phone every time it buzzes, hoping it's you. Maxwell laughed softly. We're quite a pair, aren't we? He took her hand again as they resumed their walk. Speaking of seeing you next, I have to go to San Francisco for a few days, a startup I'm considering investing in. Would you consider coming with me? The invitation caught Amelia by surprise. To San Francisco? I don't know if I can get the time off on such short notice. It would just be for the weekend, Maxwell clarified. We could fly out Friday after you finish work and return Sunday evening. I have meetings on Friday morning, but the rest of the time would be ours. The prospect was tempting a weekend away with Maxwell, exploring a city she'd always wanted to visit. But it also represented a significant step forward in their relationship, one that made her both excited and nervous. I'd have to check at work, she said. When would we leave? This Friday, if possible. Maxwell watched her carefully. If it's too soon or you're not comfortable with the idea, I completely understand. Amelia considered it for a moment. She had been cautious with Maxwell, always mindful of the vast differences in their circumstances. But over the past weeks, he had proven himself to be far more than his wealth and status. He had shown her the man behind the billionaire facade, and that was the man she was rapidly falling for. I'll come, she decided, assuming I can get Friday afternoon off. The smile that lit up Maxwell's face was worth any uncertainty she might have felt. I'll make all the arrangements, he promised. All you need to do is pack a bag. A small one, she warned. Nothing fancy. Noted, he said, bringing her hand to his lips. Thank you, Amelia. As they walked back toward the car that would take her home, Amelia felt a strange mix of anticipation and trepidation. A weekend away with Maxwell Quinn was more than she had ever imagined when she first met him at that party. Whatever happened in San Francisco would undoubtedly change the course of their relationship. She just hoped her heart was ready for wherever that change might lead. The San Francisco trip changed everything between them. From the moment they boarded Maxwell's private jet, a luxury Amelia had protested but ultimately couldn't refuse given their time constraints, there was a new intimacy to their interactions, a sense of shared adventure that brought them closer. Maxwell had booked a suite at a boutique hotel overlooking the bay, with a separate bedroom that he insisted Amelia take, while he would use the sofa bed in the living area. His consideration touched her deeply, though by the end of their first night in the city, after a romantic dinner overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge, they both knew the separate sleeping arrangements wouldn't last. Their first time together was both tender and passionate, Maxwell's usual confidence tempered by a vulnerability that surprised and moved Amelia. Afterward, as they lay tangled in the sheets, her head resting on his chest, she felt a sense of rightness that she had never experienced before. "What are you thinking?" Maxwell asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "That I didn't expect this," she admitted. "Any of this. You, us, how I feel right now. And how do you feel?" His voice was soft but intent. Amelia propped herself up on her elbow to look at him. In the dim light, his eyes were serious, searching. "Happy," she said simply. "Safe. Like I've found something I didn't even know I was looking for." Maxwell's expression softened. "I feel the same way." He reached up to cup her cheek. "Amelia, I need you to know that what's happening between us, it isn't casual for me." "It isn't casual for me either," she said, her heart racing at the implication of his words. "Good." He pulled her down for a kiss that conveyed everything they weren't quite ready to say aloud. The rest of the weekend passed in a blissful blur. They explored the city together, Maxwell delighting in showing Amelia his favorite spots while discovering new ones with her. They rode cable cars, wandered through colorful neighborhoods, and ate at tiny restaurants Maxwell had researched specifically because he thought she would enjoy them. On Saturday evening, as they walked along the Embarcadero, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, Maxwell stopped suddenly. "What's wrong?" Amelia asked, concerned by the serious expression that had fallen over his face. "Nothing's wrong," he assured her, taking both her hands in his. "I just realized something important." "What's that?" she asked, her pulse quickening at his intensity. Maxwell took a deep breath. "I'm falling in love with you, Amelia Turner." The words hung in the air between them, momentous and transformative. Amelia felt tears spring to her eyes, unexpected but welcome. "Maxwell, you don't have to say anything back," he rushed to add. "I know it might be too soon. I just couldn't keep it to myself anymore." Amelia shook her head, a smile breaking through her tears. "I was going to say that I'm falling in love with you too." The relief and joy that washed over his face was beautiful to behold. Maxwell pulled her into his arms, lifting her slightly off her feet as he kissed her with a passion that left her breathless. "You're sure?" he asked when they finally broke apart. "I know my life is complicated. The public scrutiny, the demands on my time, the expectations people have, it's a lot to take on." "I'm sure about you," Amelia said firmly. "The rest we'll figure out together." When they returned to New York on Sunday evening, something fundamental had shifted between them. What had begun as casual dating had transformed into something much deeper, a commitment neither had expected, but both now embraced wholeheartedly. Over the next 2 months, their relationship flourished despite the challenges. Maxwell's schedule often took him away on business, but he made every effort to include Amelia when possible and always prioritized time with her when he was in the city. For her part, Amelia maintained her independence, focusing on her career while carving out space in her life for this unexpected relationship. They settled into a rhythm that worked for both of them. Maxwell gave her a key to his penthouse apartment, and she gradually left more of her things there, though she kept her own place, not yet ready to give up that symbol of her autonomy. It wasn't always easy. The first time they were photographed together leaving a restaurant, the resulting social media speculation was overwhelming for Amelia. Headlines questioning who Maxwell Quinn's mystery woman was popped up on news sites, and suddenly strangers were digging into her background, her career, even her previous relationships. "I'm so sorry," Maxwell said when he saw how upset she was. "I should have warned you better about what it would be like." "It's not your fault," Amelia insisted, though she was still shaken by the invasion of privacy. "I just didn't expect it to feel so violating." Maxwell's expression darkened. "I can have my PR team issue a statement asking for privacy." "Would that even help?" she asked doubtfully. "Probably not," he admitted, "but we could try to control the narrative somewhat." In the end, they decided on a middle path. Maxwell's team confirmed that he was dating someone but requested privacy, while Amelia adjusted her social media settings to maximum security and warned her family and friends they might receive unwanted attention. The interest eventually died down, as Maxwell had assured her it would. "They'll move on to someone more interesting soon enough," he had said. "Some celebrity divorce or royal scandal will come along, and will be yesterday's news." He was right, though occasionally a photo would appear when they attended a public event together, reigniting brief speculation. Amelia gradually learned to ignore it, focusing instead on the reality of their relationship, rather than the distorted public perception of it. There were other adjustments, too. Maxwell's wealth remained a point of tension at times. He was generous by nature and had to learn that Amelia valued her financial independence, while she had to accept that some aspects of his lifestyle were simply part of who he was. "You can't keep taking the subway to work," he argued one morning after she'd mentioned a particularly unpleasant commute. "Let me arrange a car service for you." "I can't accept that," Amelia countered. "It's too much." "It's not about the money," Maxwell insisted. "It's about your comfort and safety." "It feels like charity," she admitted. "Like I'm taking advantage." Maxwell's expression softened. "Is that what worries you? That people will think you're with me for what I can give you?" Amelia nodded, embarrassed but honest. "Sometimes. I know it's silly." "It's not silly," he interrupted. "But Amelia, anyone who knows you would never think that. And anyone who would think that doesn't matter." He took her hands in his. "When I offer you things, it's not because I'm trying to buy your affection. It's because I love you and want to share what I have with you." It was the first time he had said the words so directly. "I love you." They had both spoken of falling in love, but this declaration was different, present tense, certain, absolute. "I love you too," Amelia replied, the words coming easily now. "And I'm trying to find the balance between maintaining my independence and accepting that being with you means some things in my life will change. We'll figure it out together," Maxwell promised. "I don't want to change who you are. Your independence and strength are part of why I fell for you in the first place." They reached a compromise on the transportation issue. Amelia would accept a car service on days when she was meeting Maxwell after work, or when she had to travel to areas where late-night subway service was sketchy. Otherwise, she would continue her normal commute. It was one of many compromises they navigated as their worlds merged. Maxwell learned to enjoy simpler pleasures like movie nights in Amelia's modest apartment, while she became more comfortable in the rarefied environments his position sometimes required them to inhabit. 4 months into their relationship, a more significant test arose. Maxwell needed to attend a charity gala that would be covered extensively by the press, and he wanted Amelia by his side. It would mean going public officially, he explained as they discussed it over dinner in his apartment. No more ambiguity about our relationship. Amelia twirled pasta around her fork, considering the implications. "That's a big step." "It is," Maxwell agreed. "And if you're not ready, I understand completely. I can attend alone." "No," Amelia decided, putting down her fork. "If we're doing this really, doing this, then hiding away isn't the answer. I'll go with you." Maxwell's relief was evident. "Are you sure? There will be photographers, questions. It won't be easy." "I'm sure," she said with more confidence than she felt. "Besides, I've been wanting an excuse to buy a ridiculously expensive dress." Maxwell laughed, reaching across the table to take her hand. "I love you. You know that?" "I'm starting to get the idea," she replied with a smile. The night of the gala arrived with all the anticipation and anxiety Amelia had expected. Maxwell had offered to help with her attire, but she had insisted on handling it herself, wanting to feel like she belonged there on her own terms. She chose a midnight blue gown that was elegant without being ostentatious, styled her hair in a sophisticated updo, and kept her makeup subtle but polished. When Maxwell picked her up, the appreciation in his eyes told her she had made the right choices. "You look absolutely stunning," he said, his voice slightly rough with emotion. "You clean up pretty well yourself," she replied, straightening his bow tie. The car ride to the venue was quiet, Maxwell sensing her nervousness and simply holding her hand, offering silent support. As they approached the red carpet, he turned to her. "Ready?" Amelia took a deep breath. "As I'll ever be." The flash of cameras was blinding as they stepped out of the car, Maxwell's hand steady at the small of her back. She heard the murmur of recognition, the increased intensity of the photographer's calls as they realized who was arriving. "Mr. Quinn, over here." "Maxwell, who's your date? Can we get a name?" Maxwell guided her through it with practiced ease, pausing briefly for photos but not stopping for questions. Once inside the venue, he found them a quiet corner to regroup. "You did wonderfully," he assured her. "Are you okay?" Amelia exhaled slowly. "That was intense, but I'm fine. The worst part is over," he promised. "Now we just enjoy the evening." He was right. Once the initial entrance was behind them, the evening became more manageable. Maxwell introduced her to people he knew, always with a simple, "This is Amelia Turner, my girlfriend," a declaration that sent a thrill through her each time he said it. Most people were polite, if curious. A few were openly assessing, particularly some of the women who Amelia suspected might have had designs on Maxwell themselves. But his unwavering attention to her throughout the evening made it clear to everyone present that his interest was genuine and serious. It was near the end of the night, as they shared a quiet dance on the edge of the ballroom, that Amelia spotted a familiar face across the room. Her body tensed involuntarily, causing Maxwell to pull back slightly to look at her. "What's wrong?" "Ethan is here," she said quietly, nodding toward where her ex-boyfriend stood with a group of people, looking in their direction. Maxwell's arm tightened protectively around her waist. "Do you want to leave?" "No," Amelia said, surprising herself with her certainty. "I'm not going to let him chase me away. Not again." As if sensing their attention, Ethan excused himself from his group and began making his way toward them. Maxwell shifted slightly, positioning himself so he could easily step between Amelia and Ethan if necessary. "Amelia," Ethan greeted her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "What a surprise to see you here." His gaze flicked to Maxwell, a calculation visible in his expression. "Mr. Quinn, I don't believe we've been formally introduced. Ethan Davis." "We've met briefly," Maxwell replied coolly. "Though you may not remember the circumstances." Ethan's smile faltered slightly. "Have we? I'm sure I would recall meeting someone of your stature." "It was at the Horizon Mixer a few months back," Amelia supplied, finding her voice. "You were being rather insistent about a conversation I didn't want to have." Recognition dawned in Ethan's eyes, followed quickly by poorly concealed irritation. "Ah, yes, a misunderstanding." He looked between them, comprehension setting in. "So, this is why you've been ignoring my calls. You've moved up in the world, Leah." The use of her old nickname and the implication in his tone made Amelia bristle. "I've been ignoring your calls because we have nothing to discuss, Ethan. My relationship with Maxwell has nothing to do with it." "Of course," Ethan replied, not bothering to hide his skepticism. "Well, you always were ambitious. I just didn't realize how ambitious." Before Amelia could respond, Maxwell spoke, his voice quiet, but with an edge that couldn't be missed. "I suggest you reconsider whatever you're about to say next, Mr. Davis. Insulting Amelia is not something I take lightly." The threat was clear, and Ethan, for all his bravado, seemed to recognize the power dynamic at play. "No insult intended," he backtracked. "Just surprised to see an old friend in these circles." "We're not friends, Ethan," Amelia said firmly. "We haven't been for a long time." Ethan's expression hardened. "Clearly. Well, I won't keep you from your evening." He nodded stiffly to Maxwell. "Mr. Quinn." As he walked away, Amelia let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Maxwell's hand rubbed soothingly against her back. "Are you all right?" "Yes," she said, and meant it. Actually, that felt empowering, seeing him now and realizing how completely over him I am. Maxwell's expression softened into a smile. I'm glad, though I have to admit, I was ready to have security escort him out if he'd continued. My knight in shining armor, Amelia teased, though she was touched by his protectiveness. Always, Maxwell replied, his tone making it clear he wasn't entirely joking. The encounter with Ethan, rather than dampening the evening, somehow enhanced it for Amelia. It was a tangible reminder of how far she had come, not just in finding love with Maxwell, but in her own growth and confidence. When they left the gala later that night, she faced the photographers with her head high, no longer intimidated by the attention. The next day, their picture would appear in society pages and on social media, officially introducing Amelia Turner as Maxwell Quinn's girlfriend to the world. But in that moment, as Maxwell helped her into the car and then slid in beside her, taking her hand in his, none of that mattered. What mattered was the man beside her, who looked at her as though she were the most precious thing in his world. Move in with me, Maxwell said suddenly as the car pulled away from the curb. Amelia turned to him in surprise. What? Move in with me, he repeated, his eyes intent on hers. I know you value your independence, and I respect that. But I want to wake up with you every morning, Amelia. I want to come home to you at night. I want us to build a life together, not just visit each other's lives. The earnestness in his voice touched her deeply. They had been practically living together for weeks now, with Amelia spending most nights at his place and only returning to her apartment for clothes and mail. Are you sure? She asked. It's a big step. I've never been more sure of anything, Maxwell assured her, but only if you want it too. Amelia thought about what it would mean giving up her separate space, fully integrating their lives, making a public declaration of their commitment. 6 months ago, the idea would have terrified her. Now, it felt like the most natural progression imaginable. Yes, she said, squeezing his hand. I'll move in with you. Maxwell's face lit up with joy, and he pulled her into a kiss that expressed everything words couldn't. When they broke apart, both slightly breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. I promise you won't regret it, he whispered. I know I won't, Amelia replied, certain in her heart that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The next morning, as sunlight filtered through the blinds of Maxwell's soon-to-be-their bedroom, Amelia woke to find him watching her, a soft smile on his face. Good morning, she mumbled, still half asleep. Good morning, future roommate, he replied, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Sleep well? She nodded, stretching. You? Better than I have in years, Maxwell said, pulling her closer. I was thinking about what you said last night, about feeling empowered when you faced Ethan. What about it? Amelia asked, curious about his thoughtful expression. It made me realize something, Maxwell said. When I first met you, you were cornered, literally and figuratively. But you've never been a victim, Amelia. Even then, there was a strength in you that called to me. I didn't feel very strong that night, she admitted. But you were, he insisted. And watching you grow even more confident over these past months, seeing you stand up to Ethan last night, facing the press on your own terms, it just reinforces what I've known from the beginning. What's that? She asked, touched by the emotion in his voice. Maxwell's smile was tender as he brushed a strand of hair from her face. That you're extraordinary, and that I'm the luckiest man in the world, because somehow you chose me too. Amelia's heart swelled with love for this man who saw her so clearly, who valued not just her beauty or companionship, but her strength and spirit. I love you, Maxwell Quinn, she said simply. And I love you, Amelia Turner, he replied, more than I ever thought possible. As they lay there, wrapped in each other's arms with the morning sun warming their skin, Amelia knew that whatever the future held, whatever challenges came with loving a billionaire, whatever adjustments they still needed to make, they would face it together, as equals in the ways that truly mattered. What had begun with a chance encounter at a party, with her cornered by an ex and him stepping in to defend her, had blossomed into something neither could have predicted, but both now treasured beyond measure. It wasn't a fairy tale, it was better. It was real, with all the complexities and compromises that entailed, but also with a depth of feeling that no story could fully capture. And as Maxwell pulled her closer for a lingering kiss, Amelia knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning of their story, The transition of moving in together went more smoothly than either of them had anticipated. Maxwell had cleared half his closet space before Amelia even began packing, a gesture that touched her deeply. He also suggested they redecorate some rooms together, wanting the penthouse to feel like their home, not just his space that she was joining. "I was thinking we could convert the second guest room into an office for you," Maxwell said one evening as they sat on the floor of her apartment, sorting through which books she would bring to their shared home. "The light in there is perfect for working, and the view might inspire you." Amelia looked up from a stack of novels, surprised by his thoughtfulness. "You don't have to give up space for me. I know you sometimes use that room when you have colleagues staying over." "They can use the other guest room," Maxwell said dismissively. "Besides, I want you to have your own space in our home, somewhere that's just yours." "Our home," Amelia repeated, still getting used to the phrase. "It sounds nice when you say it like that." Maxwell smiled, setting aside a book to reach for her hand. "It's going to be nice, Amelia, I promise." And it was. Within a month, the penthouse had transformed from Maxwell's elegant but somewhat impersonal space into a warm home that reflected both their personalities. Amelia's colorful art prints hung alongside Maxwell's more austere pieces. Her books filled previously empty shelves. Even the kitchen showed signs of her influence, with new cookware and spices for the meals they had begun preparing together on weekends. The office he had promised her became a reality, with a custom desk that overlooked the city and built-in shelves for her marketing references and the fiction she loved to read in her spare time. It was a sanctuary where she could work from home when needed or simply retreat when she wanted quiet time. Their daily routines merged and adjusted. Maxwell, an early riser by nature, would often bring Amelia coffee in bed before heading out for his morning run. She, more of a night owl, would sometimes be up late working on a campaign when he returned from a business dinner, greeting him with a kiss and pulling him down beside her to hear about his day. They learned the small details that made up each other's lives, that Maxwell couldn't stand the smell of bananas but loved almost all other fruits, that Amelia had a habit of leaving half-full water glasses around the house, that he hummed unconsciously while reading financial reports, that she talked in her sleep, often about work deadlines. These intimate discoveries only deepened their connection, making them feel more like partners in the truest sense of the word. Not that there weren't challenges. Maxwell's schedule remained demanding, with unexpected trips and late-night calls that sometimes disrupted their plans. Amelia was understanding but occasionally frustrated, especially when important moments were interrupted. "I'm so sorry," Maxwell said one night, returning to their bedroom after an hour-long call that had pulled him away from what was supposed to be a romantic dinner celebrating Amelia's promotion. "The Singapore deal is falling apart, and if we don't stabilize it by morning, we could lose everything we've invested." Amelia sighed, looking at the cold food still on their dining table. "I understand. It's not your fault." "But you're disappointed," Maxwell observed, sitting beside her on the bed. "Rightfully so." "It's fine," she insisted, though her tone suggested otherwise. "Your work is important." "So is yours," he countered, "and this was meant to be your night." He took her hand, his expression serious. "I'm proud of you, Amelia. This promotion is a huge achievement, and you earned it through your talent and hard work. I wanted tonight to be special." His sincerity melted her disappointment. "There will be other nights," she said, meaning it this time. "Is the Singapore situation fixable?" "With some creative negotiating, yes," Maxwell replied, relieved that her anger was fading. "But it might mean flying there tomorrow." Amelia nodded, already mentally adjusting to the change in their plans. "How long?" 3 days, maybe 4. He hesitated, then added, "You could come with me. I know it's last minute, but I hate the thought of leaving right after your promotion. We could extend the trip a few days, make it a working vacation." "I can't," Amelia said regretfully. "The Burke Media campaign launches next week, and I need to be here for final approvals." Maxwell nodded, understanding but clearly disappointed. "Rain check on Singapore then." "But we are going to properly celebrate your promotion. When I get back, I'm taking you to that new restaurant you've been wanting to try, and my phone will be turned off the entire evening." Amelia smiled, leaning in to kiss him. "I'm holding you to that, Mr. Quinn." True to his word, when Maxwell returned from Singapore 4 days later, they had the celebration dinner she deserved, complete with champagne, gourmet food, and his undivided attention. It was a pattern they established: honesty about disappointments, understanding of obligations, and commitment to making up for lost time. As months passed, their relationship deepened. Amelia became more comfortable in Maxwell's world, accompanying him to business functions and charity events, developing her own relationships with his colleagues and friends. For his part, Maxwell integrated seamlessly into Amelia's social circle, winning over her skeptical friends with his genuine interest in their lives and his obvious devotion to Amelia. "I have to admit, I was wrong about him," Paige confessed one afternoon when she and Amelia met for lunch. "When you first told me you were dating a billionaire, I thought it was a disaster waiting to happen." "I remember," Amelia said dryly. "You weren't subtle about your concerns. Can you blame me? Your track record with men wasn't exactly stellar, and suddenly you're dating one of the richest men in the country." Paige shook her head. "But Maxwell is different. The way he looks at you, it's like you're the most valuable thing in his world, and that has nothing to do with money or status." Amelia smiled, warmth spreading through her at her friend's observation. "That's how it feels too, like what we have exists in its own space, separate from all the external factors." "So?" Paige leaned forward conspiratorially. "Is he going to propose soon? You've been living together for almost 8 months now." The question caught Amelia off guard. They hadn't explicitly discussed marriage, though there was an unspoken assumption in many of their conversations about the future that they would be together long term. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "We haven't really talked about it directly." "But you want to marry him, right?" Paige pressed. Amelia considered the question seriously. "Yes," she realized. "I do, when the time is right." The time, as it happened, came sooner than she expected. 2 weeks later, Maxwell suggested they spend the weekend at his beach house in the Hamptons, a place they'd visited several times and where Amelia felt particularly at peace. The weather was perfect that Saturday, warm enough for a long walk on the beach, but with a crisp breeze that hinted at the approaching fall. They spent the morning walking hand in hand along the shore, talking about everything and nothing, the way they often did when they had uninterrupted time together. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, Maxwell suggested they have dinner on the deck overlooking the ocean. When Amelia came downstairs after changing, she found the deck transformed. Strings of soft lights illuminated the space, candles flickered on the table, and the simple meal Maxwell had prepared looked like something from a gourmet restaurant. "What's all this?" she asked, touched by his effort. "Just wanted to make tonight special," he replied, pulling out her chair. As they ate, Maxwell seemed unusually reflective, asking her about favorite memories from their time together, places she still wanted to visit, dreams she had for the future. Amelia answered openly, enjoying the intimate conversation. After they finished dessert, Maxwell suggested they move to the lounge chairs to watch the last of the sunset. As they settled in, his arm around her shoulders, he turned to face her. "Amelia," he began, his voice more serious than before, "these past 11 months have been the happiest of my life. Before I met you, I had success and wealth, but something essential was missing. You filled that void in ways I never could have imagined." Amelia's heart began to race as she realized where this conversation might be heading. "Maxwell, please, let me finish," he said gently. "I've been trying to find the perfect words for days, and if I don't say this now, I might lose my nerve." She nodded, squeezing his hand encouragingly. "When I first saw you at that party, cornered by your ex, something in me responded immediately. It wasn't just about protecting you. It was a recognition of something special, a connection I couldn't explain, but couldn't ignore either." Maxwell's eyes were intent on hers, filled with emotion. "Every day since then has only confirmed what I somehow knew that first night. That you are the person I want to share my life with. Your strength, your kindness, your brilliance, your laughter, all of it has become essential to me." Maxwell stood up, pulling Amelia gently to her feet before dropping to one knee before her. From his pocket, he produced a small velvet box. "Amelia Turner, I love you more than I ever thought possible. Would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife?" He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a brilliant diamond set in platinum with smaller sapphires on either side, elegant but not ostentatious, exactly to Amelia's taste. Tears filled her eyes as joy bubbled up inside her. "Yes," she whispered, then more firmly. "Yes, Maxwell, I would love to marry you." Maxwell's face broke into a radiant smile as he slipped the ring onto her finger. Then he was standing, gathering her into his arms, kissing her with all the love and promise of their future together. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying a little, Maxwell pressed his forehead against hers. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" Amelia asked, still dazed with happiness. "For saying yes," he replied. "For loving me. For everything." They spent the rest of the evening planning and dreaming, talking about what kind of wedding they wanted, small and intimate, where they might live long term. They both loved the penthouse, but agreed they might want something different when they had children, and all the adventures they hoped to share. As they lay in bed that night, Amelia gazed at her ring in the moonlight streaming through the window. "I can't believe this is real," she murmured. Maxwell pulled her closer. "Believe it," he said, pressing a kiss to her temple. "This is just the beginning." The news of their engagement spread quickly among their friends and family, met with genuine happiness from those who had seen their relationship develop. The media coverage was more intense than Amelia had anticipated, with speculation about the wedding details and the inevitable prenuptial agreement dominating some tabloid headlines. "Just ignore it," Maxwell advised, when she showed him a particularly offensive article suggesting she had trapped him for his money. "Anyone who matters knows the truth." Amelia tried to follow his advice, focusing instead on planning their wedding and continuing to build their life together. They decided on a spring ceremony at a small estate in the Berkshires, with only their closest family and friends in attendance. In the months leading up to the wedding, they navigated the usual stresses of planning while balancing their busy careers. Maxwell was in the midst of launching a new venture focused on renewable energy, while Amelia had been promoted to creative director, overseeing multiple high-profile campaigns. Despite their hectic schedules, they made time for each other, keeping their regular date nights and weekend retreats sacred. It was during one such weekend, about 2 months before the wedding, that they had their first serious disagreement about their future. "I've been thinking," Maxwell said as they sat by the fireplace in his aspen cabin, snow falling gently outside. "After we're married, would you consider stepping back from work a bit, maybe consulting instead of full-time?" Amelia looked at him in surprise. "Why would I do that? I love my job, and I just got promoted." "I know, and I'm incredibly proud of you," Maxwell assured her. "It's just that, with my schedule and yours, we barely see each other some weeks. And if we want to start a family soon—" "Soon?" Amelia repeated, her tone sharpening. "We haven't discussed having children right away." Maxwell looked taken aback by her reaction. "I thought we both wanted children." I do," Amelia clarified. "But I assumed we'd have a year or two just for us before we started trying, and I certainly wasn't planning to give up my career." "I'm not asking you to give it up," Maxwell protested. "Just to scale back, maybe have more flexibility." "Why am I the one who needs to scale back?" Amelia challenged. "Your schedule is far more demanding than mine." Maxwell ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "My company employs thousands of people, Amelia. I can't just step away. And my career isn't important enough to maintain." The hurt in her voice was unmistakable. "That's not what I'm saying," Maxwell insisted, reaching for her hand, which she reluctantly gave him. "Your career is important. You are important. I just thought, I want us to have time together, to build our family." "So do I," Amelia said more softly, seeing the genuine concern in his eyes. "But I need you to understand that my work is part of who I am. I can't just set it aside because we can afford for me not to work." Maxwell was quiet for a moment, clearly processing her words. "You're right," he finally said. "I shouldn't have assumed you'd be the one to compromise. That wasn't fair. And I shouldn't have jumped to the conclusion that you don't value my career," Amelia admitted. "I know you do." "I do," Maxwell assured her. "So much. I'm in awe of what you've accomplished." "Amelia?" "Then let's talk about this openly," she suggested, not making assumptions about what the other wants or expects. They spent the rest of the evening having an honest conversation about their expectations for the future when they might start a family, how they could balance their careers with parenting, what compromises each was willing to make. By the end of the discussion, they had a clearer understanding of each other's perspectives and a tentative plan that respected both their needs. "I'm sorry I reacted so strongly," Amelia said as they prepared for bed. "It's just that, for so long, I've had to fight to be taken seriously in my career. The thought of stepping back just when I'm reaching new heights." "You don't have to explain," Maxwell assured her, pulling her into his arms. "I should have been more sensitive to that. And for what it's worth, I think you're going to continue to achieve amazing things, whether we have children now or later." "Thank you," Amelia said, nestling against him. "And I promise, when we do decide to start our family, we'll figure out a balance that works for both of us." Maxwell pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "I know we will. Together." The incident strengthened their relationship in unexpected ways, teaching them how to navigate disagreements with respect and understanding. By the time their wedding day arrived, they had worked through several other potential points of contention, from where they would spend holidays to how involved they wanted to be in each other's business decisions. The ceremony itself was everything they had hoped for: intimate, meaningful, and focused on their commitment to each other rather than the spectacle that many had expected from a billionaire's wedding. Amelia wore a simple but elegant gown that made Maxwell's breath catch when he first saw her walking down the aisle. His vows brought tears to her eyes, and the kiss they shared after being pronounced husband and wife felt like a promise sealed. At the reception, as they shared their first dance, Maxwell held Amelia close, his lips near her ear. "Happy, Mrs. Quinn?" Amelia smiled up at him, her heart so full she thought it might burst. "Happier than I ever imagined possible. Even though your husband is a stubborn billionaire who sometimes makes ridiculous assumptions," he teased, referencing their Aspen disagreement. "Even then," she assured him, "because he's also the most loving, supportive, incredible man I've ever known." Maxwell's eyes softened with emotion. "I love you, Amelia Quinn, and I promise to spend every day of our lives trying to be worthy of that description." "You already are," she whispered, standing on tiptoe to kiss him as their guests applauded around them. Later that night, as they prepared to leave for their honeymoon in the Maldives, Amelia caught Maxwell looking at her with an expression of wonder. "What?" she asked, smiling. "I was just thinking about that night we met," he said, taking her hand, his thumb brushing over her wedding band. "How different everything might have been if I hadn't noticed you being cornered by your ex, if I hadn't stepped in." "I've thought about that too," Amelia admitted. "It seems like such a small moment to have changed our lives so completely." "Not small," Maxwell disagreed. "Pivotal. I knew there was something special about you from that first moment. I just never dreamed how special you would become to me." Amelia leaned into him, resting her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I'm glad you noticed me," she said softly. "I'm glad you stepped in. I'm glad for every moment that led us here." Maxwell wrapped his arms around her, holding her close, as if she were the most precious thing in the world, and to him, she was not because of her beauty or intelligence or any single quality, but because of the totality of who she was and what they had built together. "So am I," he whispered against her hair. "So am I." As they left the reception amidst cheers and well wishes, stepping into the car that would take them to the airport, Amelia looked back at their friends and family. This moment, this happiness had seemed so improbable on the night they met, when she was cornered by her ex at a party, not realizing that the man defending her was a billionaire who would fall in love with her. Life was unpredictable that way, she thought, as Maxwell squeezed her hand. The most significant chapters often began with the most unexpected encounters, and she couldn't wait to see what the next chapter would bring. 5 years later, Amelia stood in the doorway of their Hamptons beach house, watching as Maxwell built a sandcastle with their 3-year-old daughter, Lily. The little girl's laughter carried on the breeze as Maxwell pretended to be shocked when a wave washed away part of their creation. "We'll build it stronger this time, Lily Pad," he promised, helping her pack wet sand into a bucket. Amelia smiled, one hand resting on her slightly rounded belly, where their second child, a boy, according to the latest ultrasound, was growing. Life had taken them on an unexpected journey since their wedding day, with challenges and triumphs neither could have predicted. Maxwell's renewable energy venture had grown exponentially, changing the landscape of sustainable power and cementing his reputation as a visionary in the field. Amelia had continued her career, eventually starting her own boutique marketing firm that specialized in helping socially responsible businesses grow their brands. They had waited 2 years before trying for their first child, as they had discussed during that crucial conversation in Aspen. When Lily arrived, both had adjusted their schedules, Maxwell delegating more responsibility to his executive team, Amelia structuring her new business to allow for flexibility. It hadn't always been easy. There were nights when both were exhausted, days when work demands clashed with family needs, moments when they questioned whether they could truly balance it all. But through communication, compromise, and unwavering commitment to each other, they had created a life that honored both their individual aspirations and their shared dreams. Amelia stepped onto the deck, calling out to them. "Lunch is ready whenever you two sand architects are." Lily looked up, her face so like Maxwell's with those same blue eyes lighting up. "Mommy, we made a castle for princesses." "I can see that," Amelia replied, smiling. "It's magnificent." Maxwell stood, brushing sand from his hands. "Come see it up close before we eat," he suggested. "Your daughter has quite the eye for detail." Amelia made her way down to the beach, accepting Maxwell's steadying hand as she navigated the uneven sand. He pulled her gently against his side, pressing a kiss to her temple. "How are you feeling?" he asked quietly, one hand moving to rest protectively over her belly. "Good," she assured him. "Just a little tired. Your son is apparently training for the Olympics already." Maxwell smiled, the joy and pride evident in his expression. "Like father, like son." "Heaven help us," Amelia teased, leaning into his embrace. "Mommy, look." Lily pointed to a shell she had carefully placed at the entrance to the sandcastle. "It's a door for the fairies." Amelia crouched down as best she could with her growing belly, admiring her daughter's handiwork. "It's perfect, Lily. The fairies will love it." As they sat together on the beach, Lily chattering excitedly about the inhabitants of her castle, Amelia caught Maxwell watching her with that same look of wonder she had seen so many times over the years at their wedding when Lily was born, during quiet moments when they were simply being together. "What?" she asked softly, just as she had on their wedding night. Maxwell's smile deepened, reaching his eyes and creating the crinkles she had come to love so much. "Just thinking about how lucky I am," he replied. "How everything good in my life began the moment I saw you across that room, looking like you needed rescuing, but actually being the strongest person there." Amelia reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. "We rescued each other, I think." "We still do," Maxwell agreed, squeezing her hand gently. "Every day." And it was true. Through all the changes and challenges, they had continued to be each other's safe harbor, each other's strongest advocate, each other's truest love. What had begun as a chance encounter had grown into a partnership neither had known they needed, but both now considered the greatest blessing of their lives. As Lily tugged on their hands, demanding they help her collect more shells for her castle, Amelia and Maxwell exchanged a smile full of shared memories and future promises. The billionaire and the marketing executive, brought together by a moment of rescue that had turned into a lifetime of love, and neither would have changed a single step of the journey that had led them here, to this beach, to this family, to this perfectly imperfect life they had built together.